What's up guys, welcome back to DIY with Rye. Today we're going to take this desktop laser engraver and make it safer to use. Now this is my laser engraver. It's a blue diode laser running on an aluminum framed gantry that goes around and engraves things similar to what a 3D printer would do. I found this on Amazon about a year ago and I've used it for a few different things from customer projects and personal projects, but I haven't used it as much as I like because of some safety issues that I found while using it. Now first and foremost, whenever this laser is in operation, it's emitting a very bright blue lights, and while I'm using it, I'm able to wear these green safety glasses that came with it. Anyone who walks into this room or walks past this room is getting exposed to that light. That's very damaging to their eyes. Another issue that I found is whenever I'm engraving, the fumes that are released while engraving are just getting released into the air here. So I have a fume extractor at the back just draped over the edge of the frame. It's kind of doing its job, but not really, because there's not a good area of suction for that fume extractor to operate in. A couple other small things that I've noticed that would really be helpful are setting up a permanent mounting system for this, as whenever it's in operation and it's not fixed to whatever surface you're engraving on, the stepper motors tend to shift the frame on the work surface, and that will skew whatever design you're working on. And finally, this is a really large area of my desk that I'd like to get back. So we're gonna fix that right now with a design for this cabinet. Now here's the design that I've worked up for the laser cabinet. It's pretty basic, but let me walk you through it. Now to solve the issue of the blue laser light, I have this green tinted acrylic glass on all of the windows. For the fume extractor, I cut a hole in the back part of the cabinet. Now that hose from the fume extractor will run down the back of the cabinet through this hole to this lower area where the fume extractor itself will be housed. This open area at the bottom is where all of the cabling and hoses will go. And for the cabling coming out of the laser, there's this hole that I'll put a little grommet on, and that'll help keep everything nice and sealed to get a good extraction of those fumes inside the cabinet. I'm also planning on leaving this top shelf removable, so that way if I need to access the laser from the top for any reason, I can do that through the top of this cabinet here. Like I said, pretty simple design, but should work for these purposes. Now after getting the design all worked up, I went ahead and broke down the model and printed out a bunch of really quick drawings with some dimensions on them, so that way I can reference while I'm cutting out the lumber that I've got behind me. So let's get to that. Alright, pause the video. Editor Ryan's got to come in really quick with a safety notice about this section right here. So as you can see, I am free cutting this side piece on a table saw. There's no fence on the other side to help guide me, and that is really inadvisable as there's a lot of room for error here. The table saw could get jammed on your piece of wood. You could wind up with kickback, or even worse, your hand could stray into the moving saw blade, which is really gonna make a bad day. So I wanna say right now that what I'm doing is not something you should be doing yourself in your shop. Make sure that you set up everything to be as safe as possible. Please work safe while you're in your shop, and let's get on with the video. All right, now that I have the lumber roughly cut to size, I'm gonna start working on a lot of the detail cuts that'll really make this cabinet come together. That includes cutting out the door, the windows, the holes for the electrical and fume extraction and putting everything together. To start, I'm going to work on the side panels, working on cutting out the windows, and also cutting in a dado for the lower shelf to sit in. Because I don't have a dado stack, I'm just going to set up my fence and move it incrementally to cut out all of the material there.
Using the drawings that I had made, I added in the outline for the window openings that I needed to cut out. To cut these out, I plan to use a Forstner bit for the corners to make sure that everything was nice and round, and then go back and connect those holes with the jigsaw. Now when it came time to make the door, I opted for the harder route of cutting out the door in place versus using an offcut to make the door, as I was trying to make everything very visually pleasing and have the grain pattern flow across the entire front face.
So it's been a couple of days since I've worked on the cabinet project here, and that's mainly due to some things outside of the workshop that have been going on. But I got the laser film in, and it's the wrong color. This should be an emerald green, and actually the product description on Amazon said that this was supposed to be emerald, but it is clearly lime green, and when I tested it out with the laser, I was not very shocked to find that it didn't work. And so I ordered this guy, and it's come in a much better package, along with this really cool, shiny solar protective film on each end of the tube. Anyways, this bright stuff as far as I can tell. I did a couple of tests with it, and while it's not as great as the laser safety glasses themselves, it'll definitely do the trick, but that'll be a little bit later on down the line. For now, we got to finish up all of the wood pieces on this cabinet. Got a lot of stuff to do, so I'm going to stop talking and get to work.
Using my palm router and the measurement drawings that I had previously made, I added in a 1/2 inch inset on the door and side panels to allow for the laser glass to sit inside. With all the parts ready for assembly, I went through and pre-sanded everything that would be interior facing, as it's a lot easier to sand things while they're unassembled and you don't have all these nooks and crannies to try and get into. Now for assembly, I'm just using glue and pocket hole screws. And the astute members of the audience will probably notice that I'm using the pocket hole screws in the wrong direction. However, they're just here for clamping pressure while I'm assembling everything, and the glue is doing the majority of the work in holding the cabinet together. With the cabinet assembled, I could add in the support for the upper shelf to sit on. Now this is just 3/4 inch plywood that I ripped down to encircle the cabinet and should provide enough support for the removable upper shelf to sit on. For the door hinges on this cabinet, I went a little overkill and got some soft close European style kitchen cabinet hinges. Now, like I said, they're overkill and I'll probably end up changing them because of the design of the cabinet as well as the design of the hinges, making the door a little rocky when you're closing it. Oh, but just look at that soft close action, so buttery smooth. And to prevent our buttery smooth cabinet door from closing too far in on itself, I added this magnetic catch to stop it just in the right place and also prevent it from opening while in use.
All right, home stretch. The only thing really left to do as far as assembly goes is to cut out the acrylic panels that'll go in as the windows here. To do that, I'm just gonna go over to the table saw, cut those down, and then I'll attach the green tinted film, and then we'll slap some finish on this and we'll be good to go.
Even though I had everything pre-designed going into this build, I still measured out the actual window openings to make sure that everything fit well and there wasn't any sort of discrepancies from CAD to actual building. Now this is just a time lapse of me putting the green film onto the acrylic windows. However, if you'd like a full, in-depth tutorial on how to apply window film, I'll have a video out soon detailing the entire process, so keep an eye out for that and I'll be sure to link it in this video.
Almost to the finish line on this project, just a few more steps to go. Those include adding the windows into the window slots here and on the door. But before I do that, I want to put some finish on the entire cabinet since this will be inside and I kind of want it to be a little bit more of a showpiece. Before we even do that, there's a couple of steps that I need to do for mounting the laser. With these open frame lasers, I found that if you do not have your frame secured down to your work surface, you'll wind up with the laser rocking whenever it's in operation, as the stepper motors on it are pretty powerful and the frame is pretty lightweight. Actually, as an example, you can see here where the laser actually jumped and ended up messing up the engravings or the test engravings that I was working on here. And to solve that issue, I initially had this epoxy putty type of material that I temporarily put the laser down to my desk on, and that works in the sense that it secures the laser down. But in this setup, since I'm hoping that this will be a more permanent solution, I'm planning on using these elbow brackets that I purchased from Home Depot. I'm going to drill those into the base here and then drill into the acrylic legs that go onto the frame of the laser. I'm going to do all that before doing the finish, so that way I can get the holes sanded down and nice and smooth, and then we'll go on to finish and wrap this thing up.
For the finish on this cabinet, I'm using some wipe-on polyurethane, and I'm only doing one coat as this is a utilitarian cabinet. It'll be inside, and so I'm not that worried about any sort of damage happening to the wood. For attaching the windows to the cabinet, I'm using some E6000 glue, as it's got a great adhesive strength between two different materials, but will also allow me to remove the windows in case I ever need to replace them or add more film to them.
And here we go. Now, probably not my best piece of work, but it'll do for what I needed to do. The safety aspects that I was concerned about when using this laser have been fixed with this cabinet setup, and that's the main goal that I was trying to achieve here. I think that's going to do it for this one. Overall, this is going to really help my work effort moving forward with this laser, and it's going to just create a better environment to work around it. If you have any tips and tricks for building functional pieces of furniture like this, leave that down in the comments below. I know I could use that information as well as everyone else viewing this video. And subscribe so that way you're always up to date on projects that I make like this guy. But until next time.